Welcome to the Fishbowl Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Fisher, and today we're joined by my good buddy, Matty. Not Jim Matheson, but Matthew Fiacco for our maiden voyage. Our
Thanks
first
for having me on the show, Larry.
Absolutely, Matty. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as everybody can probably tell, our first episode is going to focus on the Edmonton Oilers. Matty and me were kind of the dynamic duo here in Kelowna, British Columbia. Matty's got his McDavid jersey on, and I'm wearing a Draisaitl for this episode. We tend to get out and watch a lot of games together, but again, talking all things Edmonton Oilers, mostly in the present and looking to the future. But we're going to start off, Matty, by taking a trip down memory lane. It's good to have you on the show. And first things first, let's introduce you to oil country. I believe you were born and raised in Edmonton before moving to the Okanagan. When did you become an Oilers fan, and who were your favorite players growing up?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to see the Gretzky area of the Oilers, but because I was born the year that he got traded. But my favorite players after that were like Mark Messier, Esa Tikkanen, Yari Curry, like the 1990 Stanley Cup Oiler team.
Yeah, that year, I think we were both pretty young. Like I said, you were born in '88 when Gretzky got traded. I'm a few years older. I was born at the end of '84, so I missed the Oilers' first cup in '84 as well. I was alive for '85, '87, and '88, but my first real memories probably are 1990, and even then, I don't remember a lot of that. Obviously, Billy Ranford being the goalie on that team, I turned out to be a goaltender, so a lot of memories there. But I think maybe the generation we remember the most were those hard-working Oilers clubs of the '90s with Dougie Weight, and then obviously we saw the transition to Ryan Smith, and I'm sure you have other favorite players from that era.
Yeah, Tom Marchant, um, Michael Pekka, Alex Shamsky, for sure. My favorite moment will always be when the guy from the Dallas Stars went down, shot at the empty net, it hit the post, it went Horkoff, Smitty. Smitty hit a streaking Alex Shamsky for the game tying goal, and then Tom Marchant won it in overtime. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, what a sequence that was. Hey, I remember Ray Ferraro on the call. It was a great call too by Ray, and yeah, that was quite the turn of events there. That was Patrick Steffen, former first overall pick from Atlanta, was playing for Dallas and missed the open net, and the Oilers turned it back up and got the barn rocking that night again. Obviously, being from Edmonton, I'm sure you got some good memories from attending games at the old rink. Have you been back for any games at the new rink? And maybe the memories that come to mind, Matty, probably that 2006 Cup run, because you would have been basically 20 years old or 18
No,
years old when they went all the way to the final against Carolina.
yeah, that was one of my favorite memories too. It's too bad Rolison got hurt.
Yeah, big fan of Rolly the goalie that year. He was a trade deadline acquisition. We'll talk about some potential if the Oilers need to upgrade goaltending throughout this podcast as well. But I know somebody you mentioned to me that you really liked was Curtis Joseph. He was again, I became a goaltender with the Billy Ranford, but Cujo was my guy growing up. I even had a Cujo goaltending helmet. Like Tommy Sallow for a bit too when they had the drill bit third jerseys or alternate jerseys. Those were pretty cool, the McFarland jerseys. But you also mentioned, Matty, that you got an exciting trip planned for this season. I know you like getting back to Edmonton for games, but what about what are you looking forward to in April? I believe you're following the Oilers on the road.
It's not chilly Alberta, but we're going to California. Yeah, we're going to go see Las Las Vegas, Anaheim, and LA, the three-game California swing.
That'll be awesome. And you're going with family. I believe your parents are going with you as well.
Yeah, my mom and dad.
And you come from a big family of Oilers fans, or uh,
Yeah, my cousins, my uncles, my auntie. Yeah, we're all other fans.
what about your sister? She must be a big Oiler fan.
Yeah, my sister, but my brother-in-law is a Flames fan. He likes to bug us, me and my dad. He's got a
Oh,
Johnny Hockey jersey.
Oh yeah, rest in peace to Johnny Gaudreau. But you
Yeah,
let your sister marry a Flames fan, Matty. What's up with that?
I know. I didn't want that situation.
No doubt.
Uh,
I guess now we could talk a little bit more about the present. Like we said, '06 was almost 20 years ago, believe it or not. But we can talk about what's cooking with the Oilers this season and who's cooking for the Oilers going forward. But we're still in December, just past the quarter pole, approaching the 30 game mark this week. I know we've talked about the Oilers are in the midst of a busy, tough stretch with the Tampa Bay 2-1 win on Tuesday was a really good game for them. They have Minnesota tonight. Vegas again on Saturday. That's going to be a big one after getting shut out down in Vegas or getting shut out 1-0 by Vegas a couple Saturdays ago. And then obviously Boston's in town before hosting San Jose and Ottawa ahead of the holiday break. What are you looking forward to over the next couple weeks?
um, just to like have more wins and then hopefully take those Vegas Golden Knights down from the division lead.
Yeah, I guess that's the big thing, right? Chasing down Vegas. I know Vancouver's getting JT Miller back tonight, so they're going to be that much stronger. They just got Demko back on Sunday. LA somehow seems to be, they're kind of 7-3 in their last 10. They've been winning hockey games as well. Do you like the Oilers' chances of winning the division or the conference? I know it seems like they've kind of turned the corner and gained a lot of momentum since American Thanksgiving, kind of similar to last year. Last year they were way down at 31st overall out of the league at American Thanksgiving. This year they were still kind of right in that wild card race. But are you confident the Oilers are a playoff team? Do you like their chances of winning the division or even the conference?
Yeah, I like their chances of winning the division and the conference.
And what about the big one? Obviously, you don't want them to win the President's Trophy. You were telling me about that.
That's a big jinx. Teams who win President's trophies get knocked out in the first round.
That does seem to be the trend for sure. The big one being the Stanley Cup. Edmonton is still tied for the best cup odds as of today, Matty. I checked. They're tied with Florida and Carolina. So obviously the defending champion, Florida Panthers, who Edmonton just lost to in Game 7 of the final back in June. And of course, the Carolina Hurricanes were the opponent back in 2006. So interesting that those three, Edmonton, Florida, and Carolina, are tied for the best cup odds this year, ahead of Dallas, the Rangers, Toronto, and Colorado among the top seven. Do you consider the Oilers a cup favorite, Matty?
Yes, I do. If we keep playing the way we are, we can beat anyone. We can get white cooking again.
Absolutely, yeah. And White Ave was cooking in 2006. Even the Country Bar is even named after cooking at Cook County Saloon there in Edmonton. So yeah, that's awesome. Definitely. I went back for the last couple playoff runs or last few and been a part of the atmosphere there in downtown Edmonton. And big shout out to Daryl Cates, making Rogers Place, the vision of a downtown arena, come to life and building everything around it that has really revitalized that downtown in Edmonton. It's a lot of fun to get back there. Even the outdoor watch parties, you get there on a road game on a Saturday night, and downtown Edmonton's alive. So hopefully they'll have another long run, Matty. But I have to ask you, is this their year? You mentioned we were really young in 1990 for the Oilers' last cup with Messier and Anderson and Tikkanen and Ranford and Peter Klima, all those boys. And we were still under 10 years old for Canada's last cup when Montreal won in 1993, which crazy to think that's been that many years ago. But can Edmonton finally end that drought for Canada in the Stanley Cup in 2025?
Yeah, I think so.
For sure. That wouldn't come until June. Obviously, the Cup, the finals played in June. But what do you want from the Oilers, Matty, for Christmas? Or maybe the better question is, what should Stan Bowman have on his wish list? Does he want more wins, the division lead, maybe a big trade, or all of the above? What are you sort of hoping the Oilers deliver for Christmas?
More wins, division title, home ice advantage, and maybe a trade or two.
That's not asking for too much. Hey, I got a good list there. I'll be sure you'll have to mail it off to Jeff Jackson, or maybe send it on a courier, because the Canada Post strike, it might not get there by Christmas. But we'll get your wish list out there for Santa, who's Jeff Jackson now in Edmonton. But you mentioned maybe a trade or two, Matty. What is the Oilers' biggest need between now and that trade deadline in March, in your opinion? Obviously, there's lots of talk about a top four defenseman, maybe an upgrade to the goaltending, even another top six forward? Or do you think this team can win the cup as is with the current roster, just a matter of getting healthy and staying healthy for the playoffs? Or you think they need a couple trades?
I think they need a couple of depth pieces for sure. Maybe a security blanket of John Gibson or Mark Deakins in the goal. And maybe we could work out a package deal to get like Connor Murphy and Taylor Hall together. If we get that, we'd be decking the halls for sure. Deck the halls, deck the streets. It's going to be one hall of a party.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah, deck the halls with some new cup rings, maybe. That'd be. I'm sure Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl would love to hear that you're planning to deck the halls and just yeah, it would be quite the party in Edmonton, quite the parade. But we gotta pump the brakes on that because we're only in December. You mentioned some names there, especially on defense. There's a lot of names out there as potential D targets. Who do you like? Who do you want? I know Cam Fowler's a big name. You mentioned John Gibson, but maybe Cam Fowler's a target out of Anaheim.
He could
I
help the second power play unit for sure.
Yeah, he's
Cam.
definitely a guy that could fit in there. Obviously Ivan Provorov, a guy we got to see during the 2015 WHL Championship Series here in Kelowna with the Brandon Wheat Kings back when Kelly McCrimmon was still in the WHL. Crazy to think that was coming up on 10 years ago as well. But Ivan Provorov in Columbus, Rasmus Ristolainen in Philadelphia, Connor Murphy, you mentioned his name in Chicago. That's obviously somebody that Stan Bowman has familiarity with. He's got some term, as does Marcus Pettersson in Pittsburgh. Cody Ceci in San Jose, he's a pending UFA. The Oilers only sent him there in the summer, but obviously they know he works with Darnell Nurse, so maybe, and he was part of the run to the final last year, maybe he comes back as a rental. David Savard in Montreal, and then, there's always other guys that come to mind. I know your brother-in-law is on the wrong side of the Battle of Alberta, so I don't know how happy he'd be to see Mackenzie Weegar or Rasmus Anderson wearing the Oilers jersey. But obviously, if Montreal's a potential fit, Mike Matheson would be the big fish there, even bigger than David Savard. But that's a lot of names to digest, Matty. Do any of them stick out to you? I know you already mentioned Connor Murphy, and Cam Fowler, you sort of thought any of those other names sound like they'd look good in an Oiler jersey?
Ristolainen looked really good. He's big, penalty kill, shutdown D.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. He was back in the World Juniors. He was more of an offensive guy. Didn't put up great numbers in Buffalo, and neither now in Philadelphia. But he seems to be playing a really good system for John Tortorella there. He's getting pretty good minutes, around 20 minutes a night. And there are rumors of Ristolainen to Edmonton. We've heard even Bob Stauffer's name dropped him a couple times on the Oilers Now show. So there might be some smoke there. And on to the goaltending, Matty. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but do you trust Stuart Skinner as the starter for another playoff run? And would you be confident in Calvin Pickard if something happened to Skinner and he got hurt like Rolison did back in 06? Are you confident in the current tandem?
Well, let's put it in perspective. Stuart Skinner in the last 5 games is 4-1-0 with a 1.41 goals against average and a 9.947 save percentage. He's on a heater right now. A security blanket just in case one of them get hurt close to the playoffs would be amazing.
Yeah, great reference on Skinner's stats. So you said he's been hot lately. He's a big reason the Oilers have turned it around and got a lot of momentum in their last 10 to 12 games. Started the season, obviously the penalty kill was struggling, and part of that was Skinner's struggles. To see the penalty kill improve and Skinner get his confidence back, you can really see the team that took off in the second half under Chris Knobloch last year. Calvin Pickard, such a great teammate. Everybody loves him. They can't say enough about him. He's getting the start tonight against Minnesota as well. So he'll be back between the pipes. But just in general, thinking of Skinner Pickard tandem and knowing what happened with Rolison in 06 when obviously he got injured in a collision with his own player, no less, and then they had to turn to Ty Conklin and UC Markkanen. I think that security blanket you mentioned is potentially something that has to be in the mind of Stan Bowman, even if they're happy with Skinner and Pickard. And I think a lot of the noise about Edmonton needing to upgrade the goaltending is probably outside noise, fan base maybe some media speculation. I don't think internally, as far as the players or even the management coaching staff, I think they have confidence in Skinner Pickard. But if we are talking goaltending, Matty, who should Stan Bowman be shopping for in the goalie market? I know you mentioned John Gibson and Elvis Merzlikins. Those are obviously two of the big targets. Both have term remaining on their contracts, as does a guy like Tristan Jarry in Pittsburgh, who certainly played for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the WHL in his junior days, so there's some familiarity there. Peter Mrazek in Chicago. I know you mentioned a Taylor Hall, Connor Murphy package. Maybe it's Peter Mrazek and Connor Murphy coming to Edmonton. And then you got to look at the Utah Hockey Club. They got two goaltenders in Karl Vejmelka. He's a pending unrestricted free agent, likely to be moved if Utah's not looking like a playoff team. He's been playing well while Connor Ingram's been hurt. And Ingram has some big game experience, even played for Canada at the World Juniors. Then you go back to the other side of the Battle of Alberta, Matty. You got Daniel Vladar in Calgary. They seem happy with Dustin Wolf as their future goaltender. They got Devin Cooley as they got their security blanket in the AHL with Devin Cooley. I think he could come up and be a good complement to Dustin Wolf. Maybe some veteran names too, Matty. Even a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury in Minnesota, who the Oilers are going to face tonight, but he'll be backing up tonight. But a real veteran guy, cup rings, somebody that could really mentor Stuart Skinner, and yet you'd feel confident if Fleury had to go in if Skinner got hurt. But I'm sure Minnesota doesn't want to leave. They love having Fleury there as their security blanket to Philip Gustafsson, who's one of the hottest goaltenders in the league, along with Connor Hellebuck. Minnesota Winnipeg fighting for the Central Division lead right now. I don't think they want to necessarily go to Jesper Wallstedt and Philip Gustafsson until next season. And then you got a guy like James Reimer in Buffalo. Philip Grubauer in Seattle has some term left, as does Ville Husso in Detroit. And Vitek Vanacek as kind of the last guy in San Jose now that they got Georgiev and Askarov for the future. But there's another dozen names for you, Matty. I know Gibson and Merzlikins are top of mind, but is Merzlikins the guy? Is that the one you'd target?
Yeah, I really like him. He's young. He's got some term.
And definitely a guy that's been rumored to Edmonton in the past. Hasn't come to fruition, but his name's been connected to the Oilers as well. So maybe, especially if something was to happen to Skinner between now and the trade deadline, there was an injury, I think he would be one of the calls that Stan Bowman would make among that list. But there are definitely some goaltenders that could be on the move. We've seen some already this season in the NHL. Certainly Colorado shook up their goaltending. They got Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. They got all the wood there in Colorado now, but they traded off Georgiev and Justice and Noonan, so they got rid of their entire tandem. They weren't happy with their goaltending, but the Oilers, I think, are going to ride it out with Skinner and Pickard for the time being. Certainly the season's young still, like we said. We're only 30 games into an 82-game schedule. But looking back on the offseason, Matty, are you happy with the moves that were made and the roster overhaul? Obviously, guys like Jeff Skinner, Victor Arvidsson, Vasily Podkolzin, Ty Emberson are new faces on the roster. They're sort of replacing guys like Ryan McLeod, Warren Fogle, Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg. We know how well those guys are doing with their new team, especially the Holloway and Broberg with the offer sheets in St. Louis and having success with the Blues. But is it too soon to judge the early returns, or who has impressed you most among the new additions through the first 25, 30 games of the season?
Yeah, Kapanen, Ty Emerson, Kapanen, Ty Emerson. Yeah, they're impressing me a lot right now.
Yeah, Kapanen, I didn't even mention. He's a waiver claim. The Oilers got off waivers from St. Louis. Kind of their, we'll take him back, kind of almost the trade-off for Dylan Holloway, maybe pushing Kapanen out of that St. Louis lineup. Edmonton comes in and claims him. He's been really good, showing some chemistry with Leon Draisaitl, playing on that line with Vasily Podkolzin, who, he's only got 3 goals on the season, Podkolzin, but you can tell he's getting 3 or 4 good scoring chances a night. Playing with Draisaitl will do that. He's one of the best passers in the league, in addition to leading the NHL in goals heading into tonight. But Podkolzin, I think, has been a pleasant surprise. Surprising in the sense that Vancouver traded him to a division rival for a 4th-round pick, but he's sort of working his way into a pretty solid role there in Edmonton as well. Arvidsson, obviously, maybe one of the guys we were expecting more from, just because he's been injured. You have to get him healthy. But him and Skinner, maybe, I know everybody thought Skinner might end up on the top line with McDavid, or certainly you expected those guys to be top 6 wingers. Skinner has been kind of playing on the third line, and Arvidsson's been injured. Looking forward to seeing those two pick up the pace in the second half.
Yeah, they really need to pick up the pace. Same with Nugent Hopkins. He's been on a scoring slump too.
Yeah, between Nugent Hopkins and obviously Zach Hyman's healthy now, he's been starting to score a bit, but Nugent and Hyman were so compared to last season, they're way down to start the year. So those two get going, and you get Skinner and Arvidsson into roles where they feel really comfortable. I think the Oilers are trending up heading into the holidays and certainly heading into the new year. What about one Matty talking about another in Matthew Savoy? He was another offseason addition. He's just adjusting to the pro game with AHL Bakersfield. The results down there on the farm, mediocre so far, kind of 0.5 points per game or averaging a point every second game. Do you see Savoy as part of the future in Edmonton, or is he maybe going to be a trade chip, somebody that they flip at the deadline if they do want to bring in some more firepower or some depth?
I think Savoy will be fine if he just plays bigger and stays in the battle and battles for pucks. He kind of shies away and goes in the soft areas. He needs to dig in more.
I love that. Dig in, right? That was intentional. You were thinking of the Amazon show and the Connor McDavid rant. Everybody's got to dig in a little more in Edmonton.
Yeah, certainly.
Savoy, he's a local kid. He's from the area. Sherwood, played some junior A in Sherwood Park, but he's an Edmonton area kid. He was even at the playoff run last year or this past June. He was in the stands. He was still property of the Buffalo Sabres, but he attended some of those home games with his buddies from around Edmonton, so he knows what that playoff atmosphere is all about. He certainly wants to be a part of the future in Edmonton. It's just a matter of the names we've talked about. You talk about a guy like Taylor Hall maybe coming back to Edmonton. You talk about Cam Fowler, Elvis Merzlikins. Those teams that are selling, Columbus, Chicago, Anaheim. When you look at what Edmonton has to offer, you have to think they're going to come asking for Matthew Savoy. Is that something you would entertain, or would you rather try and get that done with draft picks and some other prospects?
Yeah, if we need to sell the farm to win a cup, I do it.
Absolutely, right. It's the window to win is now, or it's win now mode for the Oilers.
Yeah. If they don't win, I'd be disappointed.
And how many years do you think they have in this window? Do you think it's McDavid's only going to turn, I think, 28 in January. He's got a birthday coming up. Draisaitl, not much older, only a year older. Those guys are getting closer to 30, but do you think they got kind of a 3 to 5 year window still, or is this sort of a cup or bust this year and next year?
Yeah, McDavid's still in his prime. Draisaitl's still in his prime. I'd say they got another 3-5 years.
Yeah, they're definitely building an older veteran team around them. We know that in the present, I think Edmonton's one of the oldest teams in the league. I think somebody said Nashville's actually the oldest team in the league, which is disappointing for them with the signings of Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea. And obviously they've had their struggles this season. Now Roman Josi, their captain. Yosi's hurt, so that doesn't help Nashville. But when healthy for the Oilers, and assuming Evander Kane is back for the playoffs as Edmonton's Mark Stone, Nikita Kucherov, the old LTIR ringer. What is your ideal lineup looking like for the forwards, Matty? If you were Chris Knobloch, how would you put those forward lines together with all that depth?
We get Taylor Hall from Chicago. I put Hall with McDavid, Hyman, and then you have a big heavy line with Draisaitl, Kapanen, and Evander Kane.
Yeah.
And then you put everyone back in the center. You have Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Adam Henrique right down the middle.
Yeah, I don't think any team could compete with that kind of center depth, and certainly in the playoffs having the big four down the middle to see Adam Henrique bumped all the way down to fourth line would be something. But you talk about Taylor Hall. Obviously, he was a first overall pick for the Oilers back in 2010. Had a good career with Edmonton, but during the decade of darkness and he was shipped out in that 1-for-1 trade for Adam Larson before he got to, right at the start of the McDavid era, didn't get to experience the playoff success that they've had. I'm sure he would welcome a return. But when you talk about those lines, Matty, if you were able to slot Taylor Hall up on the top line with McDavid and Hyman, give him another guy that has some finishing ability, but certainly some speed to that line. And then having that second line, like I said, Kapanen and Draisaitl will have some chemistry. And Evander Kane coming back. He's obviously had a history playing with Draisaitl. That'd be quite the second line. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a third line of Jeff Skinner, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Victor Arvidsson. That would have been a top line on the Oilers during some of those decade of darkness years. But
or Paul Cozen if you want to keep him in the lineup and have Arvidsson watch a couple.
Yeah, well, depending how Arvidsson recovers and how he plays, yeah, it's and like I said, where's Podkolzin all of a sudden? Now he's right now he's hitched to Draisaitl on the second line, but if you did bring in another forward like Taylor Hall, obviously there'd be some salary retention to make that happen, likely. And maybe maybe Chicago asks for Podkolzin back. Maybe that's something that they want back as part of that Hall package, especially if Edmonton doesn't want to part with Savoy. But if Podkolzin's still there and your third line is Skinner, Nuge, Arvidsson, then you're looking at a fourth line, a veteran fourth line. You got guys like, obviously Adam Henrique would be in the middle, but you got Connor Brown, Corey Perry, Matthias Janmark, and Vasily Podkolzin as an option. But just the depth that Edmonton could have if they're healthy come playoffs, even without adding Taylor Hall, it would still be a very deep group as of today with Evander Kane back. But if they get Kane back and they added a guy like Taylor Hall, hard to say Edmonton wouldn't be the team to beat. And it would be interesting to see what Chris Knoblauch does with the lineup, because he could definitely ice four lines capable of contributing offensively, and that would be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be a very grinding, deep lineup. Very bad team to play against.
Yeah, and you look at the competition with Vegas and LA. Edmonton's had LA's number in the playoffs the last number of years. Vancouver, obviously, if they have Demko this year, that the Vancouver fan base thinks they'd have a better chance. Obviously, Kevin Lankinen's been great for the Canucks in Demko's absence, so their goaltending would be stronger, presumably, in that playoff series. But I think in that Pacific bracket, I think it would be tough to see anybody beating a healthy Oilers team, especially if they add, maybe the priority would be a guy like Cam Fowler or even a shutdown guy like Ristolainen on defense. Don't know if they're going to go down the goaltending road if there's not an injury. And if Skinner and Pickard keep playing the way they are right now, that's probably your tandem going towards the playoffs. But yeah, if the goaltending's in good shape at the trade deadline, then maybe that allows you to make a couple moves. Like I said, get another top 6 forward or top 9 forward, as well as a real top 4 defenseman to pair with Darnell Nurse. Much like Matthias Ekholm came over a couple deadlines ago to pair with Evan Bouchard. But that's still a long way down the road. The trade deadline in March, and the obviously the Stanley Cup playoffs following that all the way to June, hopefully for another long run for the Oilers. But that is a wrap for the first episode of the Fishbowl Hockey Podcast. So thanks again, Matty, for taking the time to join me and talk all things Oilers. We'll have to do it again in the new year, but maybe any wise words for our listeners before we let you go?
Make sure your parlays don't turn into parfaits.
Absolutely. And betting on the Oilers tonight, obviously Minnesota's been a tough place to play for Edmonton over the years, but it'll be interesting to see how they do there. And certainly that game, Vegas on Saturday, that's going to be must-see TV. And after getting shut out by the Golden Knights and Adin Hill, that McDavid and Draisaitl are going to be trying to light it up on Saturday night. So that'll be a fun one to watch, and look forward to the games before the holidays and everything that's to come in the new year. So thanks again for joining me, Matty.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.